Every time the prisoner is let out for exercise, he does only one thing. He deliberately approaches the prison guards to observe the keys at their waists. Back in his cell, he draws the keys pattern from memory, sketching out every groove. Each notch requires dozens of adjustments, because even a 0.1mm error could cause the entire plan to fall apart. He lights a match to examine the inside of the lock, then presses a piece of paper against the keyhole, applying pressure with his fingertips to trace out the precise contours. After that, he rolls up the paper and inserts it into the lock, then repeatedly pokes it with a pencil. In this way, he measures the length of the key. Tim shares his bold plan with his cellmate, to craft a key out of wood and use it to escape from prison. His companion thinks it's pure fantasy wood simply can't withstand the torque, and even more difficult is how to replicate the key exactly 1-to-1. Can you really do that with just your eyes and hands? Tim is very confident, as long as everyone cooperates, there won't be a problem. Fortunately, getting wood isn't difficult. While working in the workshop, he secretly collects wood scraps, planning to hide them in a cup to take out. Unfortunately, today the prison guards are conducting a strict search. A companion deliberately knocks over a basin to buy Tim time to hide the wood. His heart rate shoots up to 180. The guard notices how nervous he is, then pours out the water from the cup and gives it a shake, but doesn't find anything wrong. Fortunately, everything turns out fine in the end. It turns out Tim had pressed the wood tightly with a towel, which is how he managed to avoid getting caught. Once all the tools are ready, he begins making the key, repeatedly filing the notches according to the blueprint. Relying on his memory, he replicates the lock's millimeter-level precision, then glues the pieces together. To make it set quickly, he puts the key inside a lampshade, and finally uses sandpaper to remove any burrs. Next comes the moment of witnessing a miracle. With a click, he actually manages to unlock the cell door. Tim breaks into a hopeful smile, but suddenly he is stunned. The cell is made up of 2 doors, and the next one has no visible keyhole. It can only be opened from the outside. His hope instantly becomes extremely slim. If he wants to escape, he has to make all the keys first. As for how to open the door from the outside, he'll have to figure that out later. There are a total of 15 iron doors in the prison, and some of them have multiple locks. To get through all of them, he needs 39 keys in total. Every single key must be made without the slightest error. This is practically a hell-level challenge. Whenever he gets the chance, Tim's eyes measure every detail like a set of calipers. If he has to recreate the locks from memory, even a millimeter of error could ruin everything. To succeed, he must test each key on every iron door. One day, while cleaning, the guard stands at the end of the corridor with a spear, and Tim takes the opportunity to try opening the iron door outside his cell. The first attempt failed, so he took out a file and reworked the grooves, and after several tries, he finally managed to turn the key. But when resetting the lock, a problem occurred. He applied a bit too much force, and the wooden key broke off inside, making everyone break out in a cold sweat. He had to pick the wood chips out. Otherwise, the escape plan would be exposed. Although the wood shavings were cleared away, the key couldn't be reset, so Tim could only lie on his bed and leave it to fate. When the prison guard noticed something unusual while locking the door, fortunately, he just assumed it was a colleague's carelessness and didn't suspect the inmates, since without a key, it would be impossible to unlock the door. Tim discussed with his cellmates how to solve the problem of unlocking the door from the outside. Longhair came up with a good idea. Tie strings to both ends of the key, thread the other end through the keyhole, and then pull to insert the key into the lock cylinder. Tim immediately rejected the idea, saying that threading the string through the keyhole would be extremely difficult, and even if they succeeded, they wouldn't be able to turn the key. While they were in the midst of a heated discussion, a prison guard quietly approached. He had long been suspicious of these guys, thinking that their constant whispering couldn't mean anything good. Fortunately, after finding nothing amiss, he left. Once they were sure the guard had gone far enough, they resumed their discussion. Suddenly, Blondie spotted the broom and got an idea. Its length was just enough to reach the door lock from the window. All they needed to solve now was how to turn the key. While working, Tim accidentally discovered a method. Inspired by the window crank, he drilled 2 holes in a wooden board, then made a hole in the broom as well. He fixed one end of the broom to the board with a screw, and inserted the other end into the key. And just like that, their lock-picking tool was complete. Late at night, Tim immediately put it to the test. After a few attempts at refining the key, he actually managed to turn the door lock successfully. Just as he was feeling relieved, something unexpected happened. The key wasn't properly secured to the wood, and it fell to the ground when he pulled it out. Tim was terrified. If the guards found it the next day, they'd be done for. Fortunately, there was still some chewing gum in the room. After his legs went weak, he decided to use the gum to stick the key and pick it up. Unexpectedly, as soon as he lifted it, the gum came up along with the key. Tim broke out in a cold sweat, as if the key had grown legs, and was getting farther and farther away. After 2.5 hours of effort, he finally succeeded. Tim let out a long sigh of relief. If the guards had found the key, all their hard work would have been for nothing. The next day, he shared his joy with his companions. They had already managed to open 2 locks, and the seed of hope was growing ever stronger. 100 days later, they had already made many keys. Tim hid the keys in the vegetable garden. This was the safest method. The guards stuck to them like glue, coming over to question them at the slightest noise, but fortunately, they didn't discover anything. Their fellow inmates advised them to give up on the idea of escaping, believing it was impossible to succeed, and that if they failed, they'd never get out for the rest of their lives. The snipers on the wall had long been eager to use escapees for target practice, but Bald Man maintained a neutral stance and refused to escape with Tim. He wouldn't report them, but he also didn't want Tim to drag anyone else down with him. Since he could open 2 doors, Tim was confident he could open the remaining ones. From the very first day he arrived, he was determined to break out of prison. The towering walls could imprison his body, but they could never confine his free spirit. There was a great dream waiting for him to fulfill. The bottom line was to liberate South Africa. Late at night, when everything was quiet, they began testing the keys. This time, they opened the iron gate on the floor, carefully made their way downstairs, and tested each key one by one, marking each with its corresponding number. Only by doing this could they ensure the success rate of the prison break. The tense atmosphere left beads of sweat dripping down their faces. Suddenly, the sound of a prison guard's footsteps echoed. It was too late to return to their cells, so they had no choice but to hide in the janitor's closet in the hallway. To make matters worse, the door couldn't be locked from the inside. To close it, they had to hold onto a tiny screw, but it was nearly impossible to get a good grip. In the end, they let go, leaving the door slightly ajar. The two of them were so nervous they barely dared to breathe. Fortunately, the chubby prison guard, who only cared about eating, didn't notice anything amiss, but he did go upstairs to check the rooms. Luckily, they had prepared in advance the bulging blankets fooled the guard during his inspection. This cat-and-mouse game lasted most of the night, and as a result, they didn't hear the wake-up bell the next morning. Tim was rudely awakened from his sleep by a kick. Relying on years of experience, the prison guard sensed something was off. Missing the bell could only mean they hadn't slept last night. Every cell was turned upside down, and panic was written all over their faces. Suddenly, Tim was called in. The prison guard picked up the broken key pieces from the floor and, looking puzzled, asked him what they were. Thinking quickly, Tim said they were for displaying photos of his parents. After a few tries, he actually managed to make them stand upright. The foolish prison guard actually believed him, and even mocked him for such a stupid way of displaying photos. Before leaving, he warned Tim to be careful, saying that if he found any evidence, he would make Tim's life a living hell. Tim was not intimidated by the panic, and would not let any opportunity to try slip by. On his 404th day in prison, Tim had already made 39 wooden keys, but there were still a few doors he hadn't had the chance to try them on. He took advantage of a dental appointment to apply for treatment outside, with the real purpose of observing an electric door that couldn't be opened with a key. This door was operated by a guard inside a small room, so if he wanted to escape, he would have to deal with the guard inside. At this time, the prison was undergoing renovations, and the main gate was left open, with a rush of freedom in the air. Tim believed that today was the best opportunity to escape. He invited other inmates to join them in the breakout, but no one dared to take the risk with the three of them. The snipers on the prison walls had been itching for action for a long time. Even if they managed to escape, they might still be caught and brought back. Long-term imprisonment breeds a twisted form of adaptation. They develop a fear of freedom, and sometimes the unfamiliarity of the world beyond the high walls feels even more suffocating than their cells. At this point, there was nothing more to say. Because Tim was scheduled to go out today and their room had just been searched by the guards, he was most concerned about his toothpaste. It was still there, with his stash of money hidden inside. Without it, he wouldn't be able to get by once he was out. Once the guards were off duty, they began to take action. Just as they were heading downstairs, they suddenly heard the footsteps of a guard on duty. The three of them immediately hid in a cramped storage room, the sound of unlocking echoing through the quiet cell block. The room echoed with silence. No one dared to even breathe. Unfortunately, the prison guard came to the storage room to put something away. Just as their plan was about to be exposed, at the critical moment, the bald man smashed the light bulb. He shouted for help toward the window. The prison guard was standing right in front of the storage room, but the cries of the lone vulture irritated him, so he headed upstairs. Thanks to the bald man buying them this precious opportunity, they were able to open each iron door smoothly. After the prison guard was lured away, the electric iron door was easily unlocked. They celebrated their impending freedom, seemingly forgetting that the last door had never been tested. Through the glass, Tim saw that the main gate was still open. Hope was right in front of them. But Tim tried 10 keys in a row, and none of them worked. Their smiles gradually faded, and with each failure, their panic grew. When the last key was used up and still couldn't turn the lock, the freedom that had been within reach vanished in an instant. Tim suggested going back the way they came, but Spear was firmly against it. He knocked on the doorframe and was surprised to find it was made of wood. Suddenly, he went wild and started chiseling at it with a screwdriver. He would rather take a bullet than go back to the cell. This terrified both of them. The loud noise echoed clearly down the corridor. Tim wanted to come over and stop him, but Blondie pried up the broken wooden board, and hope was rekindled for everyone. After dozens of strikes, the latch was completely exposed. With a gentle pull, the light of hope shone in. They changed into the clothes they had prepared in advance, took a deep breath, and then walked openly out the main gate of the prison. Outside was the main road, and groups of off-duty prison guards were still chatting together, completely unaware that 3 inmates had just walked right past them. Once they got into a taxi, they were completely free. The next morning, when the guards came to open the door, Tim and the others didn't come out as usual. He was planning to teach the 3 of them a lesson later, so he slapped down on the blanket only to find it was empty. His expression changed instantly, and he immediately ran to check. In the other 2 rooms, the blankets were also propped up with nothing underneath. The guard felt like the sky was falling and quickly sounded the alarm, but it was already too late. The 3 had already left South Africa's borders. The film is based on a true story, with the main character modeled after South African freedom fighter, Tim Jenkin. He was born into a wealthy and free white family, but dedicated himself to abolishing the apartheid system. Because of this, he joined Mandela's African National Congress in anti-apartheid activities, distributed leaflets together with the blonde man, and was arrested. They were sentenced to 12 and 8 years, respectively. They were imprisoned in Pretoria prison. After escaping from prison, Tim fled to the UK, where he continued to support the anti-apartheid movement. It was not until 1994, when Mandela became the first black president, that he returned to South Africa.
And that's a wrap, folks. If you'd like this recap, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more awesome movie recaps. We've got tons of exciting recaps lined up, so don't miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay tuned.